Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Wildcard Devy podcast. We are back after what seems like forever, back to talk Devy. The rest of the fantasy football world are talking rookies. We've shipped them on. We're ready to talk 26 to 28 Devy freshmen, incoming freshmen, Devy stars and gems, and put those names on your radar tonight with a 3-round mock. But before we get into it, I've got to bring in Jack. Jack, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm excited to chat Devy. We have guested a little bit and written a little bit out there on rookies. We've been passing on our knowledge and our experience and all our years of watching these guys. But now it's time for us to dig into what we do a little bit better, and that is looking at these incoming freshmen and the sophomores, juniors, seniors who are returning to school for another season and are ready to light up the college football world.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, we're in a quiet time of year as far as college football goes. We normally like to start these shows off with a little bit of news. Well, there isn't much going on at the moment. Obviously, we're in that kind of lull now post college football playoffs. So whilst we wait for spring ball to kind of get started. And I suppose one of the biggest things is no news in the sense that teams, quite big programs like left, right, and centre are cancelling their spring games. We seem to be moving towards a new trend of, that kind of intramural, kind of inter-squad, kind of pre-season friendly as we'd know it over here. Seems to be falling by the wayside. Texas kind of were one of the first big ones this year. Sark said no, thank you. And other sides are following suit. Like, what do you make of it, Jack?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there are several legitimate reasons not to play a spring game in the traditional sense where it was full contact, your squad going up against each other. The one that really impacts us for Devy is the one I really agree with. I don't believe that the spring portal is a reason not to have a spring game. Like, obviously the transfer portal opens up again after spring practice. I can't get on board with what is coming out of Nebraska, where they're cancelling spring ball because they're worried about players being tampered with and they're showing their cards too early. I just think that information is already out there, and people who are interested in Nebraska's players are going to be interested in Nebraska's players, whether they play a spring game or not. And really, Matt Rule has to really think about this as a two-edged sword. He might be afraid of people jumping ship because other programs come interesting and chatting extra money to his tech players, but he's dabbling in the transfer portal too. So it's a two-edged sword. I don't agree with it, and it's a shame, really. I think that the non-Devy aspect is that people who could go and see their team play football, maybe for the only time in the season, because it's a much more affordable event, might not be able to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, like I said, other big schools have followed suit. Sark, obviously, the transfer portal is going to be a little bit to do with it, but Steve Sarkisian at Texas kind of came out and said, look, we've played a lot of football. We've played a lot of games over the last 2 to 3 years. Our guys just need a break. And there's a workload management to that. These are young developing athletes. I know they're physically far more developed than me or you ever will be, but their bodies are still changing. They're young human beings, and maybe a rest is good for some of them. So from a player workload point of view, you can kind of see it to a certain extent. But yeah, you're right. It just sucks for the fans, for the local communities that by the time the in-season rolls round and 4 balls here, like trying to get into those games, even though game tickets on an average week still seem to be really, really low when you look around. In some instances, it's the cost of hotels, it's the cost of like the entire experience. Like for some families, that grow up in that community, the spring game is a big part of what they've always done. So I'm absolutely buzzing to see that Alabama are keeping the A game, although again, Coach DeBoer said it's going to look very, very different this year. It's not going to be a traditional game. It's going to be a much more kind of managed scrimmage. And yeah, it won't look like what we've seen in recent years, which again, is probably why it's not been televised this year for the first time in goodness knows how many years. But hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. It's another change and another wrinkle in terms of the way the landscape's moving these days. Speaking of like spring practice, there is one player though who is going to be taking massive advantage of spring practice, Jack, and that's Nicholas Harbour. Right now, I wanted to bring this one up because he is a guy, we've known long about in Devy circles because of his freakish athleticism and athletic profile. Built like a linebacker and runs like Tyreek Hill. The kid last summer missed South Carolina's full spring practice because he was training with the hope of landing a spot on the Olympic team, the US Olympic team, in the kind of track and field as a 200-meter sprinter. This year, he has told the boosters and the people at South Carolina he is not going to take part in any track and field, which means he's going to get his first full season of off-season football and spring full kind of program. And I just think, like, for a kid who has got unlimited kind of untapped potential, the opportunity to spend a full season focusing on nothing but football, really could stand him in good stead for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Harbour is someone who we've kind of waxed lyrical about a little bit, maybe not so much on the show because he was having quite a quiet season as a receiver last year, but someone who I know you personally are quite high on and ready to take the gamble on. I guess it's another coming into college, it was another Travis Hunter situation where he was playing a bit of defensive end as well as wide receiver. That seems to have gone away, which I guess is good for Devy purposes. But yeah, we want to see him build on a promising end to the season. I think South Carolina started to improve in general on offense, and Nick Harbour was a small part of that. Where there were a few flashes of chemistry between him and Lenoris Sellers, and I think for Harbour, if he's really going to knuckle down and pick football, this is the decision he had to make.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's like I said, it's just the opportunity to spend his time, probably for the first time since he arrived in South Carolina, focusing on nothing but football. There's always been that kind of, track training, track prep, and, fair play to the lad for shooting for an Olympic dream as well. There's not many people, with the physical makeup on this planet that can split the hand at birth. So the fact that he's looking at taking football, I won't say taking it seriously, like he's never taken it seriously, but the fact he's giving it his sole, attention now can only be good for the Gamecocks. It can only be good for Lenoris Sellers, and hopefully for my Devy shares.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I suppose then, before we really get into the hooks and crooks of this mock draft, which we know everyone's here to see, obviously spring ball is starting, and freshmen are, and our early enrollees are on campus. Have you had a chance to see any clips, highlights of any of the Ohio State guys, Jack?
Ohio State haven't actually started their practices yet. There's another week at least for Ohio State. So they're chatting about getting recruits on campus and potential 2027 enrollees. Is that right? But nothing's happening yet. All that extra football that was played, all the extended season. It's such a pain when you're national champions to have had such a long season. But no, not much going on at Ohio State right now. A bit of jostling between Julian Say and Luke Cromenhoek. That's the Florida State quarterback. The quarterback battle is starting to heat up in workouts, I believe. But in spring ball, we'll really see what goes on with Lincoln Kineholes, Julian Sayin, and potentially Tavian St. Clair, but as a real outside shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, Bama are in a bit of a distant situation. We obviously didn't make the playoffs, so there's no extended break for Alabama. However, it's been really refreshing this last couple of days, particularly on social media. Obviously, highly recruited incoming freshman quarterback Keelan Russell. Just watching clips of the way he throws the ball, that spiral is different after a couple of years of watching Jalen Milroe. I think it's exciting times. So, yeah, listen. we haven't got a lot to talk about. We've filibustered there for 10 minutes and managed to keep people briefly updated. But let's get into the goodness. Let's get into a 3-round Devy mock draft. Now, the way this is going to work is 12 teams. We're going to take alternate picks. I'll pick the odds. Jack picks the evens. It's really interesting. We're doing this as a startup. Obviously, in Devy, there isn't really ADP. ADP is not a thing. There's just not enough people out there collectively stockpiling these things. However, we keep our ears to the streets. We watch what's going on. We watch the way people are talking. We also have, kind of quite rooted opinions in players we believe in, and we'll try and convince you with the reasons why. Maybe we'll upset the apple cart and go against that kind of consensus. But we just want to give people who aren't as rooted in this as we are an idea of where the kind of Devy landscape lies at the moment and where your value is. We'll kind of rattle through the rounds. We'll talk about the players, and then maybe we pick a couple of each other's players, Jack, and focus on why we like those picks and like those values.
Yeah, it sounds good. I think it will also naturally reveal our kind of strategies a little bit. We can chat about the pros and cons of taking certain positions at certain places, and the way the draft board works out, we'll see how that looks in terms of building a roster. I don't think we're going to intentionally build a roster here. We're not going to try and take one player from each position for each team, but it'll be interesting to see how it shapes and how maybe that compares to 3 months' time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I might as well kick us off then. And I personally don't think a Devy startup draft really starts until the 103 this year, because everybody should know who the first 2 picks are going to be. The first pick is the best player in college football. He has just finished the most phenomenal freshman season. We talk about him every show, even though we try not to, just because he's so exciting. And that's Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver from Ohio State. I said on a recent episode somewhere, I've been doing that much, I can't remember where it was, that I actually think if you rank your Dynasty and Devy wide receivers at the moment, there's a really, really good shout that he is already in the top 5. I think it's a very serious argument. You'll all be sat there now rattling off 5 Dynasty players and going, "Nah, you're mad, Phil." But think about it. He is that good. And protect that 2027 pick, because you never know. If you have a bad year, it might just land you Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, we spoke on the Wildcard Dynasty show last week about trying to hoard 2027 picks and actually keeping that quiet from everybody else, which seems impossible to do because this class, headlined by Jeremiah Smith, is going to be something special. The man speaks for himself. He's had a phenomenal season in his freshman year. He's kind of taken that mantle from Marvin Harrison Jr. as the next massive prospect, where all the weight is kind of on his shoulders. And that is a huge credit to him in terms of the other players that he's kind of leapfrogged. You saw that Jeremiah Smith was the alpha wide receiver over someone like Emeka Egbuka, who's an incredible wide receiver in his own right, as well as Carnell Tate, who's developing really nicely too. So it's a no-brainer pick for me. Jeremiah Smith is the best player in college football. He has the best outlook for Devy and Dynasty purposes, even though this is a super flex draft. The wide receiver comes off the board first.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, come on then, Jack, moves on to the 102. I think I know where you're going, but
the 102 is, for me, Ryan Williams, the wide receiver out of Alabama. Again, someone who produced absolute class moments in his freshman season. Some of the highlight catches from this guy, I don't need to tell you, Phil, you'll have seen them. But if any of our listeners haven't watched Ryan Williams' freshman tape, it's just so much fun. You don't need to overanalyze it. Just put it on and enjoy, because he has some incredible athleticism, really good speed, good twitch off the line to shake defenders and create separation. Someone who is showing all the traits of a top NFL wide receiver already at an elite college program.
That's right. Yeah, listen, we are really blessed to be watching those two at the moment, and I think it's really cool. Like, those two are also developing a really cool bromance and friendship. You see them talking to each other a lot via social media, and their careers are ever going to be intertwined. Right now, Jeremiah Smith looks like the elite alpha, but both of these guys are going to go on and have, long time careers. They're winning very, very different ways, but they're both incredibly explosive. And right now, the two safest picks you can make in Devy, because their value is only going to go up.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Who's your 103? Is there a tier break here?
Yeah, and again, I think here this goes. This is where we've kind of staunchly advocated for the way we draft and the way we play. What I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to try and go a little bit more where I think the market is, so to speak. And I believe this is where we get our first kind of clump of quarterbacks. That those elite quarterbacks are going to go early in Devy startups. Even though we kind of warn against it, listen, there are 2 or 3 blue chip prospects who have elite quarterbacks have an insulated value. Now, you've got to remember, just because we don't like to necessarily trade for them and draft them and have plenty of them on our Devy rosters, doesn't mean that drafting them as a strategy, if you can get one of the elite guys, isn't going to pay dividends for you, either on your roster further down the line or in resale value. So for me, I'm going to take probably the outside of Jeremiah Smith, I would make an argument this player is still more valuable as an asset, perhaps more than Ryan Williams at the moment, and that's Arch Manning at Texas. There is, in the limited sample sizes we've seen, there is plenty of potential. Obviously, it's now his offense where Quinn Ewers moving on. I think, listen, he's first eligible in 2026. I have long said I don't think we'll see him until 2027, which again, for those of you that play Dynasty, shows you why that draft is becoming more and more valuable. But yeah, listen, he has the name value, he has the brand recognition. He's at a program like Texas. I think it's Archie's time, and I think it's a wise investment.
I can't disagree. The point here really is that insulated value for a quarterback whose name brand brings a lot of buzz even before he's really started. Obviously, he started a few games while Quinn Ewers was injured last season, but there's still loads that we need to see from Arch Manning. But in terms of insulated value, there's nothing more insulated than taking Arch Manning this early, and we've spoken about this before, where that brings its own price. You can't buy Arch Manning for what you can purchase him for, if that makes sense. If you can get him, even if you can take him, even if you take him at the 101 in your Devy drafts, he's never going to be as cheap as the 101. So
yeah, totally.
You either get him now or you overpay hideously. So
and I agree.
Take him now. And I agree. I think this is, again, another quarterback comes off the board here at the 104 for me, and that is DJ Lagway. And in my opinion, after these 4, that's your kind of elite tier at the moment. DJ Lagway has obviously shown us a little bit more than Arch Manning. We've had a season where he eventually won the starting job at Florida. He then got he got a slight injury, came out of the team for a little while, came back in. Billy Napier has saved his job because DJ Lagway has such a good relationship with him and has obviously shown to the fans that he is the guy to take them forward in a really tough SEC. Florida have a really, really tough schedule again in 2025. So DJ Lagway is going to have the prime opportunity to boost his Devy stock and show us exactly why he should be taken in this top tier of guys, or considered in this top tier of Devy players. My concern is, the route that Nico Iamaleava has had, where he was probably in this bracket 12 months ago and had a tough season and didn't develop in the way we'd like. So there's a lot I want to see from DJ Lagway. He's definitely the fourth most valuable player on my board. I probably wouldn't draft him for my own team here, but I think this is where he has to go. And I think there's a tier break after this.
Yeah, I think I agree entirely. I am absolutely delighted with my strategy of trading back and acquiring extra second round picks, because in 3 drafts last year I managed to snag him in the second, and those shares feel like they've improved in value massively, which is obviously what we're about. You know, if things work out and he looks the real deal, then I will keep hold in the hope that he can refresh my dynasty rosters. If we see that Nico stall, I'm not opposed to trying to trade him before the market catches up, which is, is the way you've got to look at it.
Yeah, it is. And the thing with these quarterbacks now, their ceiling in a Superflex Devy league is much higher than even Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. Their ceiling is higher, but their floor is absolute burnout and no points ever scored on your dynasty roster, whereas Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams are a little bit safer in that. So we'll probably get on to some of those picks. You talk about acquiring those extra second round picks and picking up DJ Lagway last year. We'll probably touch on a few quarterbacks who are in that position this year. So if you want to take that gamble and get some extra Devy picks to try and take on the upside quarterbacks, will catch up with some of them next year. But it certainly worked for DJ Lagway if you picked him up.
Yep. Right. I'm gonna shock everybody now, I think, with the 105. And I'm gonna stick with another quarterback. This is a real wild card. This is a real. This is the one that is boom or bust. There's always somebody in your draft who goes boom or bust, and this is our boom or bust pick because this is high. But I'm going to take Lenoris Sellers, quarterback from South Carolina. Listen, Lenoris Sellers has potentially an elite rushing floor, a developing arm. He's playing in a South Carolina team that is built around his needs, and yeah, it's wheels up. This could be the real breakout year. I feel like we saw flashes of it towards the back end of last season. I went back and watched quite a bit of game film recently, and I think I even tweeted out there, he's going to be a real test of whether I can stay true to my beliefs of ignoring drafting Devy QBs unless I've got those extra picks, because he is so fun to watch. He's got a developing arm, but that rushing floor we know is so valuable for fantasy. It might feel a little high. It feels really wobbly, even in a pretend draft between me and you, to take him that high. But he's the start of that next tier for me. It's a little bit of a risk. It's a little bit of a gamble, but the payoff could be huge. So if you're a little bit more risk averse, hey, go nuts.
Yeah, I think this is high. I love Lenoris Sellers. I love everything about his game and his attitude and approach to playing quarterback. His acknowledgement that he has some things to work on and grow in, and he's kind of talking about what work he's putting in to grow that, his vision downfield, his patience in the pocket, his arm strength and technique. So that's been really good to hear him talk about. He's aware of what he needs to work on. This guy he's flown a bit under the radar, and I have managed to pick up plenty of shares of him. So I'm very happy, and I didn't have to spend anything like a first round pick on him. But his hype reminds me of what happened to Anthony Richardson. And we saw how high Anthony Richardson got drafted in the NFL, which meant he went 102 in nearly every single rookie draft that I was a part of. So Lenoris Sellers at 105 seems expensive. I would obviously love to pick him up at the back end of the first round, but the ceiling is so high for that dual threat. He's such a good runner of the ball. He's physical, but he's sensible. He is strong in contact, but he doesn't seek it out. I think his rushing floor is really secure as long as he can earn a starting spot in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, then, Jack, hit us with the 106.
So the 106 is a homer pick. It's Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. Number 17 has taken a back seat in terms of being the number one wide receiver at Ohio State, but he hasn't slowed his development. He hasn't shrunk away, and he has really benefited, particularly in a few games. Think about the Northwestern game this year where he went back to Chicago, his hometown, and got 2 touchdowns, really lit up Northwestern. I think Carnell Tate, we're almost a bit fatigued with how exciting a prospect he is because he's been over recruited. If that is a fair thing, it's probably not a fair thing to say to him, but he's always been in a really competitive Ohio State wide receiver room. I think Carnell Tate is an incredibly solid wide receiver that is going to flourish again this year and be a first round pick in the NFL.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with at the moment. Sometimes a pick at the moment this seems like really solid but unspectacular. But in a year or so's time, like it's just going to be sound value. It's really hard to knock. You're right in what you say. He has played second fiddle, but there's now going to be some vacated targets from Egbuka. The Tate can step into quite willingly, and he's already shown flashes of just what he's capable of. So yeah, it's wheels up for him. I think that's a really, really good pick. It's really funny, isn't it? Like I felt like Sellers was a gamble where I took him at 105, but I kind of felt like I'm not drafting against you. We're drafting together to help the people, but I kind of felt like you go Carnell Tate, which left me to then at 107 feel like I'm getting an amazing value in, for me, right now, the best running back in college football, and that's Jeremiah Love. I cannot wait to see what is in store for Love this year after a really, really kind of dominant run all the way through to the college playoff final. It's such a shame, obviously, not for you, the Ohio State Buckeyes fan, but for the general kind of public watching, that they didn't get to see this guy at his best because he was banged up by the time they got there. But I think he's going to be in for a big, big year. Obviously, a lot of change at Notre Dame with Riley Leonard moving on, who actually took quite a lot of the rushing workload as well. It's going to be interesting to see whether Love picks up the carries, where the kind of splits go. But you're going to love watching this guy and paying a little. Basically, if you're not already paying attention to him, now is the time to pay attention because you're going to see an exciting top-end running back.
Yeah, we saw the 98-yard touchdown in the playoffs. We saw the 6-yard touchdown in the playoffs where he had to fight through 4 players hanging on to him all at once. This is a guy who's got strength and speed. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And I think he's going to have to do a lot this year because I'm not really sure who's going to be the quarterback at Notre Dame in 2025. And it might be Agnelli. I believe that's his name. Who would be don't quote me, but I think a sophomore quarterback who's kind of sat and learned. But Jeremiah Love is the star of this offense and the star of this team. Someone who we unfortunately didn't get to see fully healthy in that championship game, and he was really shut down. But yeah, this is the first quarterback off the board. I don't think there's too much debate about that. It'll be interesting to see how long before the next running back is picked. This guy is the number one running back by quite a distance in terms of the 2026 NFL draft as we speak.
Yep, agreed. Right, 108, Jack. Who you got?
Yeah, and here is TJ Moore, the first receiver at Clemson of any 3 that really I could be picking. Maybe not this high, but I absolutely love TJ Moore. again, another freshman receiver in 2024 who had a great start to his college career. I think Clemson are in the best position they've been in for maybe 3 or 4 years. And I think it's also probably the best position they're going to be in for the next 5 or 6 years this season. So if Clemson can keep everybody healthy, they've got a plethora of weapons that you basically can't double any of them because they can all hurt you so badly. I think TJ Moore's going to have a fantastic 2025 season with Cade Klubnik returning to throw the ball and distribute it around. He is such an exciting wide receiver, and he is probably being slept on. This is high to take him, but I'm not missing out on him. If I'm picking, if I'm picking at the 108, I've made it to the playoffs, but I'm not done particularly well in them. I'm picking a receiver here who could be a difference maker at the next level.
Yeah, listen, I think you're right, and the more I look, I wrote a piece recently for IBT, looking at Heisman odds, and I picked Cade Klubnik as probably the best value odds based on the current market, and one of the reasons for that was this bevy of weapons that he has got. Like he may have the best lineup of receivers in college football next year, which is headlined, if you like, or kind of co-headlined by TJ Moore, because you could make the argument that any one of the kind of their big three now are worthy of being the guy. And yeah, TJ Moore, silky smooth. What's not to like? I agree with you completely.
Yeah, great route runner, and like you say, they do have 3 receivers who could be the guy, but they will have different roles. And I really like how TJ Moore can work across the field and basically play any of those receiver positions.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so 109. And you've left me with a couple of choices now because it would be very, very easy to go back-to-back Clemson wide receivers. However, I'm not because I'm picking for the team 109, and I want the team 109 to get an immediate shot in value to their running back room for next year. And I'm going to take Nick Singleton. Obviously, we've spoken about him almost nauseum on this show in terms of what we needed to see from him, the development we needed to see. And as Penn State made a college football playoff kind of surge last year, Nick Singleton, was one of the main catalysts for it. Much improved vision, much better job of kind of reading what was going on around him on the field. And he really, really started to showcase that special back that I felt people were overdrafting a year and a half, 2 years ago. He is right up there for me as the kind of 1B to Jeremiah Love as the 1A in this next class. And, right now, he just screams value there. I think at the back end of the first, if you can get him around there, you've got to be happy with your business. There are times in Devy drafts he would have been going higher than this. So it just feels like, given that he's now 1 year out from arriving on your roster, potentially a really good time to take him at the back end of the first.
Yeah, definitely. Immediate production. He's going to have another really good season at Penn State as they really want to run the ball. They've brought back their quarterback. They've brought back 2 running backs. They've brought in some receivers in the portal, although I'm not super excited about it. They're still going to run the ball a lot, and they're going to be an effective offense. So there's going to be production in 2025 for Nick Singleton, and there's going to be immediate value boost to your rosters because he's coming out and he doesn't really have a choice this time. Excellent pick, even if he is your nemesis. At the 110, I then am going to take yet another. Well, so they're all now sophomore wide receivers. We've turned the page into the next season, but I'm not going to pick a Clemson receiver. I'm going to take Cam Coleman out of Auburn, someone who, again, had a really strong freshman year, especially as Auburn burst out a pretty decent start to the year, to everybody's surprise. I think the expectations were so low for Auburn that any kind of win was going to be good news. But they kind of took over. The freshmen took over at Auburn in the same way that they did at Clemson. Cam Coleman is a big physical receiver, really athletic, strong at the catch point. If he was at Ohio State, he'd be going much higher. If he was at Alabama, he'd be going much higher. He's at Auburn, which is a very storied program. Don't get me wrong, I'm not slighting Auburn, but they have been away from the limelight for a couple of years now. Cam Coleman can get them back there, along with some of the other receivers that they've got there, some of the other weapons, and some of the recruiting going on. Cam Coleman, excellent first year, was a highly touted recruit. So we did expect something, but not as much as he showed us in 2024. Phil, your mic's gone. Sorry, mate. While Phil sorts out his tech and we get his mic back on, we'll just have a think. The other guy who was in consideration here was Brant Wesco. So we kind of flirted around the other Clemson wide receiver. Brant Wesco had some really. He was a touchdown machine for a portion of last season. Is that who you were going for, Phil? Were you going to take Brant Wesco here?
I am indeed going to take Brant Wesco. Yeah, absolutely. And you filibustered really well for me there, Jack. Another kind of playmaker, very different to TJ Moore, but big game play breaker. Is another one who seems like a really, really safe pick. And if we just take a little quick count, that's Wesco, Coleman, TJ Moore, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams. That is 5 of your first-round Devy players, first eligible 2027 receivers. Guys, if you didn't believe us before and you just watch this for some dynasty gems, get those 2027 first-round picks.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? At the 112, I'm going to add yet another. I'm going to take Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. Now, this is someone who I truly believe is as valuable as a first round Devy pick. Jordan Tyson was the guy on the outside for Arizona State. Sam Leavitt's go-to, who missed the playoffs, and I think that has kept him under the radar, even in Devy circles, even in college football radars. Obviously, Cam Scatterbo took a lot of the headlines for the Arizona State team, but Jordan Tyson is someone who displayed as much on tape as Cam Coleman, dare I say it, as Ryan Williams, but went under the radar because the Big 12 is not as exciting, or it doesn't have as many eyeballs on it. Sorry, that's not true. It was arguably the most exciting conference in 2024 with how many teams could have made the championship game on that last day. Yeah, Jordan Tyson, really exciting prospect, someone you may not have seen, but definitely need to get your eyes on in 2025.
There's the spicy pick, but I just think I won't say spicy. That's the wrong thing. I think you're ahead of the curve. I think in a year's time, people are going to come back and go, man, and this is the thing about Devy. Sometimes if you trust your process and you want your guy, get your guy early, get in there, get him taken, and feel really good about it later when everyone catches on too late.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Into round 2 we go then. And I think now we've got those elite guys kind of out of the way. And in here now, I don't think there's the perfect prospects anymore, but there are some very kind of promising. Like for me, this next clump of players are all potentially very, very promising. Maybe we've not quite seen everything we need to see yet. Maybe there's been some kind of down moments. But moving forward, the future should still be really, really bright for them. And I'm going to go straight back to quarterback. And I'm going to look for a quarterback who could well have headlined this quarterback class had he chosen to come out. He made the decision to go back to school for another year, to run it back with the Penn State Nittany Lions. And I'm going to go with Drew Aller, quarterback at Penn State. I've spoken in the past about this time on task idea for quarterbacks, which is a real kind of trending thing at the moment. And for Drew Aller, I think he's one who stands to benefit from this massively. We already saw the growth this season when they actually let him throw the football. And moving forward, I think he's got a good shot at the QB1 gig in 2026. So, ultimately, even if he isn't the best kind of highest upside QB in all of Devy, if he ends up being the first one to come out next year, you've got, again, that value and that resale. Someone's always going to want a quarterback, particularly when you play Superflex. So why not take a guy who stands a great chance at being the top of the 2026 board?
Yeah, and he really does. He really does have the road in front of him to be the first quarterback in this class. A good pick, someone who we'd like to see continued development from, because you're not going to get the rushing upside. So we want to see that footwork continue to improve, that pocket presence continue to improve. I just worry. My concern with Drew Aller is the weapons around him. He loses Tyler Warren, who is going to be his go-to guy. But I guess we'll find out. That's for James Franklin to sort out. I am going to take yet another wide receiver, surprise, surprise, but yet another 2027 wide receiver, and that is Ryan Wingo from Texas. I'm sorry, I completely lost myself there. Ryan Wingo came into a really packed Texas wide receiver room, one that we spoke at length about over the summer as they brought in transfer after transfer after transfer. And Ryan Wingo still managed to establish himself as a red zone threat, someone who actually had some big play capability. There are a couple of really long catch and runs. He's got great yard after catch ability. He's strong. I really like this guy. I'd like to watch a lot more of him in the coming season. I think we're going to get plenty of opportunity. Texas are going to be on the telly box all the time. They're going to be on that Sky package that the UK has. And he's tied to our 103 pick, Arch Manning. So he's got plenty of talent throwing in the ball, and he's got plenty of talent to do something with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep it moving. 203 then. You took Jordan Tyson at the 112 as your kind of guy that you think you're ahead of the curve on. Some might say it's a little bit high, but ultimately this is how we play in Devy. I'm going to take my guy now, who, after watching some tape, I have absolutely fallen in love with, and this feels like giving away my biggest secret for this offseason. But I'm going to take Nick Marsh, the wide receiver from Michigan State. Big, strong, physical, quick. Like, for me, just ticks all the boxes of a guy that I want to pull for on Saturdays and eventually Sundays. Like I said, this is one that might seem a little high at the moment in a startup, but if you want to get your guy and not have to wait and sweat at the end of the second, which is, I think, kind of where he's coming off the board ADP wise. In a lot of mocks that we see online, I'd rather just know that I've got him and locked him up.
Yeah, and he is the target for the Spartans. We didn't expect this kind of breakout in his freshman year. I have slight concerns over the size and shape, but I'm very happy to be proved wrong. It'll be interesting. I'm really pleased that he is staying at Michigan State. He'll be paired with Aiden Childs, who will get his second year in that Spartan offense. I'm really glad he stayed put, and he's broken that campus to Canton year 1-0 theory, which is great. So wheels up for Nick Marsh. Does feel early to me, but I have seen him go this early. It's like you say, in Devy, there's no ADP. You've got to get your guy where you feel comfortable, and if this is where it's still a value, then great.
Absolutely.
Nick
Absolutely.
Marsh off
Right.
the board.
204.
The 204, and this is where I'm going to take our first, I believe, 2028 prospect off the board. And it is Decorian Moore, the wide receiver committed to Oregon. This guy is far and above the number one wide receiver recruit in this cycle. He looks really exciting. Obviously, it's only high school tape, it's high school highlights, but this guy shines above everybody on the field. He dominates defensive backs. He's always got 2 yards of separation on every highlight that you see, at least. Really crafty wide receiver, really sought after by all the top programs, and he's chosen to go to Oregon, where he'll fit into an offense that has lost a couple of key wide receivers to the NFL draft and has a real opportunity to grow and develop, as well as get his Nike shoe or whatever he has been promised by Oregon and their massive donors.
Yeah. Listen, we need to actually kind of give our incoming freshman previews in forthcoming episodes, probably in the next kind of month or so. We need to really get into that tape and give people some input on these guys before they hit their Devy drafts. What I will say from the work I've done so far is that it is not a particularly strong wide receiver group. Get your 2027 wide receivers or Decorian Moore. After that, there's names, but for me, the step down after Decorian Moore in this incoming class is pretty significant. That's not to say that guys won't emerge. Guys emerge every year, as we see, and go on to do big things. But right now, when you look at the kind of tape that's already out there, it seems like quite a drop-off. There's maybe 1 or 2 others that I would consider, but certainly nowhere in this realm. So yeah, decent pick. Lock down the best one, because if he comes out 3 and out in 2028, he will be by far and away the best of that incoming crop.
Yeah. Everybody else is going to have to be steep development curve, which definitely can happen. This is probably the only 2028 wide receiver that I'm interested in at this stage.
Yeah, without a doubt. Moving things on then, and I will keep with the theme of taking my guys, and I am going to take, he is, isn't he? He's Georgia's number 1 running back now. I'm going to take Nate Frazier.
No. That I was banking on getting him next pick.
Obviously came into Georgia and contributed far more significantly as a freshman than we expected. We all thought after transferring from Florida, Trevor Etienne was going to be the guy. Mixed form, injuries, and kind of scheme. I think the way the offense ended up playing at Georgia meant that actually Nate Frazier looked far more effective in his touches than perhaps Trevor Etienne did in his. And for me, it's his room now. It's his room. He is the elite back of that cycle. And yeah, look, Georgia have got another good one. They put running backs in the league. This will be the next big one that they put in there. No doubt about it.
Yeah, love it. I was really hoping to get him. He's like the one running back that I'm keen to take in the top 2 rounds, like super keen to get at his value. And this is where it is, I think, early second is, you can't argue with that either, but middle of the second, that's great value. And this, we've waited, we've hyped up Georgia running backs because they're Georgia running backs for a little while, and we've been a little bit disappointed when they've got to the NFL for the last 2-3 seasons. This guy doesn't look like he's going to disappoint. I would love to have Nate Frazier on a few more teams. Apologies. The 106. And here I'll tell you where I'm at. I am tossing up a whole group of quarterbacks that I would be okay with taking here.
Yep.
But because there's a whole host of them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the last wide receiver in this tier for me, and that's Eugene Wilson out of Florida. Missed nearly all of 2024 with a hip injury. He's had surgery. He is back and fully on track for the 2025 season. So got no concerns there, and none of his talent or excitement has gone. He had an electric freshman season all the way back in 2023. if we can even think back that far. And now he's paired with a really promising, exciting dual threat quarterback in DJ Lagway. I think Eugene Wilson is going to be peppered with targets in 2025. He's actually really high up my board. If you play college fantasy football, Eugene Wilson is one of my top wide receiver targets, because I think he's going to have, he's going to be playing in a lot of high scoring matchups if Florida can keep pace. That's me being generous to Florida. They've got that tough schedule. I think Eugene Wilson's going to be, asked to run route after route, really diversify his tree, which is already quite diverse. I'm really excited for Eugene Wilson. I just hope he can stay healthy in 2025.
Yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it, looking at Florida at the moment? They've recruited well. The schedule is absolutely brutal. But that connection between Lagway and Wilson could massively swing how their season goes. I'm definitely excited to see what they do this year. Definitely. Right then, the 207, and you're right. I have a crop of QBs now that are available, but similar to you, I'm going to make you strike first on them. I'm going to play QB chicken with you. So I'm actually going to take another running back. And this running back, I actually left off my top 10 list recently. Again, more fool me, because it was only when you mentioned it, I didn't want to give you the credit for it on air, but I went away and went, pooh, yeah, you missed him. And again, sometimes you miss them because although we know about them in terms of their production profile, sometimes the school a player is kind of makes it out of sight, out of mind. Listen, I think Darius Taylor is a name that you can pick up here and be very, very pleased with the production you're going to get and his transferability into next year when he's likely to commit to the draft.
Yeah, I think I love Darius Taylor. Out of Minnesota, he is going to rock the ball again and again and again. This is the program that once gave their lead running back 35 totes of the ball in a complete blowout. So even when they are running away with the game, they're just going to hand the ball off. So Darius Taylor, production, a little bit of RJ Harvey about him for those that are digging into rookie tape, someone who is really quick, really physical, has good hands at the backfield. I hope we get to see a little bit more of that, a little bit more passing from the Golden Gophers to their running back, because he is a weapon when he's got the ball in his hands and he's in open space. So I really like this pick. Not the running back I thought you'd be going for at this stage. There's another running back on my list of prospects, but I am not happy to take them at the 208, especially if you've forgotten about them. So that is fine. I am going to take the first quarterback in this run, and it is a pick of a few who are really in the same tier. So this is the guy that I prefer the most of 3, maybe 4 players here. But obviously, if I was drafting and I was picking here, I'd probably try and trade back 3 spots and take the last one in this tier. But I'm going to take Dylan Raiola. I'm going to let you enter that in actually while I talk. Out of Nebraska, freshman quarterback last year, started the kind of revolution of Matt Rule's Nebraska side, trying to get them back to national prominence. And Dylan Raiola was obviously a big 5-star recruit. The Patrick Mahomes lookalike. I haven't yet seen Dylan Raiola copy Pat Mahomes' brand new hairstyle, but I'm sure that may come. We'll see how the next few weeks progress, and whether spring ball is when he will have a matching haircut. But I was really impressed with Dylan Raiola. He's not really a dual threat. He's not shown us much running capability in college. We did see it in high school, but in college he's very much set in that pocket passer role where he's very efficient in there. He's very confident in his pocket. His footwork has been really good to see. So lots of really promising traits in a program that's really headed in one direction, and that's upwards.
Yeah, fabulous. Well, it's hard to disagree. again, there are certain players in Devy circles who are names before we've even seen them, and Dylan Raiola fits that criteria. And if he doesn't show the improvement, we'd hope, and this kind of step up in his sophomore season, I'd fully expect you still be able to sell him as well, because people will hang on that value and that name again. He's one of those rare few where you're in a Devy draft, you get to your later rounds, people are running out of ideas, and they throw that tidbit in there. Can we pick guys from high school? And someone goes, yeah, there's nothing against it in the bylaws. So they took Dylan Raiola. And we all cursed about it at the time. But hey, look, it's a gamble that a lot of people have taken. If you can get him there, I've no real problem with it. No real problem with that pick at all. I'm going to take another quarterback then, because you're right. I think there's a few clumped together now that stand out as screaming values, although there are obvious warts, which is why we didn't take them in the kind of first round. And I just want to see you spell Nico Iamaleava. Nico is obviously QB at Tennessee. And at this point, if I'm taking a gamble on one of this crop of quarterbacks, I want the one with the highest ceiling. And I think Dylan Raiola projects very well as a pocket passer. But Nico, as a 6'6" athlete with that volleyball background, he can run. He's got a certain kind of sneaky athleticism. He's got a strong arm. Yes, there needs to be development. Josh Heupel's offense should be nice and simple for him, but at times it didn't look that way. He's in conference play, in particular in the SEC, was really spotty, and we'll be looking for significant improvements there. I think what you can say is, like, in his first season as a full-time starter, where he was expected to put a whooping on lower opponents, he did. But what we need to see now is we need to see the development against elite competition. And if we see it, I feel like everyone's down on him at the moment. And he's just another one we've known about that kind of prospect for so long that likely as he comes towards his NFL draft time, whatever year he decides to come out, he'll be one there where people start to whinge about prospect fatigue because we've known about his potential for so long. But that potential's still all there. He's just got to put it in place. If he does, the 208 is going to look like a clip.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Nico. I love that pick. I think we want to see, just a little bit of a stronger 2025 than 2024. And that's the season where Tennessee got to the playoffs. So it wasn't a shabby year by any means. At the 210, I'm going to take what I think is the highest ceiling potential quarterback in this group of four. And this is a risk. So this is a 2028 prospect, and it's Bryce Underwood. And I think that this is good value. I've seen Bryce Underwood go in the first round of a Devy mock, and that is too rich a price for me to pay for a quarterback, full stop, let alone a freshman quarterback who is going to a program not known for developing a quarterback and not growing their technique particularly well, or even throwing the ball very much, because he's going to Michigan. But the talent on this kid is incredible. I would be much happier if he was at LSU in terms of the coaches there and the system in place and the history of developing quarterbacks. But Bryce Underwood at Michigan, trying to be the face. I mean, he's the face of NIL, isn't he, with a $10 million contract. But he's trying to be the face of a new look Michigan, who are going to pass the ball, who are going to this isn't a revamping because Michigan have been terrible. They obviously were national champions in 2023. But a down year last year, the new face of the program, providing some hope in some murkied 2024 goings on.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. So I'm in that position now where do I want to take a gamble on another quarterback who I personally I'm not as high on. I can see why you'd be in this clump, but I think I would prefer to test the waters elsewhere. So I'm actually going to go back to Michigan, and I'm going to take Bryce Underwood's new best friend, who's going to operate as one assumes his safety blanket, in his first season, and I'm going to take Justice Haynes, the running back, Alabama transfer. Again, this is a player who at times has shown potential to be the elite Devy running back. However, opportunity has somewhat stifled that. We've already spoken after he made the move to Michigan about why we think that is such a brilliant move for him. And to pick him up at the end of the second feels like, if things click into place like we hope, and this is, I suppose, where you're at with a lot of these kind of mid to late round second picks, you're just hoping for that next click to really turn what seems like a solid value into really, really good value and profit.
Yeah, this is the running back I was thinking of when you took Darius Taylor, someone who I would be happy to take in this range. I hope and pray this is not a Donovan Edwards situation. We hyped we didn't hype him up. Let's be clear. We're both Donovan Edwards naysayers, but we hyped up the situation for him to boost his Devy stock at this point last year as the lead back in a run heavy offense. So I really hope Justice Haynes actually bucks the exception to the rule and gets Michigan back on track as a running back developing program. To round off the second round, and while I'm here, what I'm going to suggest, Phil, is that we finish this second round, we rattle through the third round, and then maybe we will kind of dive into this mock draft in more depth in our next episode.
Great idea.
Because we said 3 rounds, let's get 3 rounds. So at the 212, I'll tie off that quarterback tier, and I'm going to take Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback who, I'm typing myself while it's okay. The quarterback out of LSU, very much a statuesque quarterback. He is not someone who's going to earn you rushing upside, but he is a true gunslinger. His arm is really impressive. He can throw that ball all over the field, and he's like the perfect match for LSU's offense. He's exactly what they need and exactly what they want. He's going to bring you some highlight passes, highlight seasons. I feel like he's really going to push that Jaden Daniels record-breaking year in 2025. LSU are going to throw the ball a ton, and I'm excited to see what Garrett Nussmeier can do. And quarterbacks at this stage is where I'm kind of happy to throw a dart. Like you say, if we've picked up an extra second round, then I'm very happy to spend it on a quarterback here. And I think Garrett Nussmeier, that's real value for someone who is in conversation as a top 3 quarterback in the 2026 class. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, rapid fire for that third round then. And I am going to start us off with one of my favorite running backs. We really need to see if they just give him the ball more this year, because in fits and bursts, he's looked absolutely superb. Let's go Caden Durham, running back from LSU. Yeah, taking the picks out of my mouth. Absolutely love this prospect. And as soon as you started talking about how he needed to be fed the ball more, I knew exactly what it was. LSU did not run the ball well at all, even though they had a very talented running back. Hopefully their offensive line is a little bit better in 2025. I'm going to take Antonio Williams next, wide receiver at Clemson. I think he is someone who had suffered a bad injury in 2023, rebounded really well in 2024, has decided to come back, even though he could have gone to the NFL, and I think he's going to have an incredible 2025. He's a huge red zone threat, big guy, contested catch, masterclass incoming in 2025.
Yeah, listen, there's a point in all these drafts where someone you are advocating as a sell kind of becomes a buy because you hit the right spot for them. So this is the point where I'm going to take Zachariah Branch, new Georgia wide receiver. Listen, we know what he could be. We've seen flashes. The consistency is a problem. which is why a kid that you would have taken in the first round, still maybe a year or so ago, is now going in the third. Let's wait and see. But it just seems like there's a spot where someone falls enough and you go, actually, now is the time where I'll take the chance.
Love it. 304, Kevin Concepcion, wide receiver who is now at Texas A&M. Obviously, he's been at NC State, was completely misused in 2024. I don't understand it. It infuriated everybody who was watching. He was clearly their best player and never got the ball. I think Texas A&M, it's going to be a congested wide receiver room with a few transfers that have come in, but I am excited to see what Concepcion is going to do, and I still really like the talent that he has.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, 305, and this now feels like the Wild West. This really is. If we're limiting things to 3 rounds, it's go and get your guys, isn't it? So I am going to go back to quarterback, and am I going to? Yes, I am. Why not? Let's take 2 quarterbacks for that team. And I am going to take, I've already mentioned him. I think he's a really good outside bet to win the Heisman this year. And I'm going to take Cade Klubnik, quarterback at Clemson. Listen, he ticked so many advanced metrics last year and really came on leaps and bounds. And with the returning cast, I can't wait to see what he does this year. Really, really can't. I think it's wheels up.
Love it. I'm going to continue that QB streak, but I'm going to go, this is the 3rd round. I'm going to go huge upside. I'm going to take Keelan Russell out of Alabama, someone who is getting real hype in spring camp. Like you mentioned, Phil, really excited for you to be able to watch him. I think upside here is huge. This is the kind of player that we're taking in the 3rd round that we might see taken in the 1st round in 12 months' time.
Absolutely. Right. In that case, then, again, let's talk about stopping the fall for players at the 307. This seems absolutely mad. I'm going to take Evan Stewart, wide receiver from Oregon. Again, there is just a point where a player who is out of favor and out of style and out of choice becomes a screaming buy again, just for the value and the potential upside. He's going to play on Sundays. It might not at the moment be at the level we thought before, but hey, if he comes anything close to what we know he's capable of, then this screams value at this point.
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to take Micah Hudson, another player who is sliding down, even though he was a 1st round, like Devy, supplemental pick last year. I don't love the landing spot at Texas A&M. I don't know what went on at Texas Tech last year and why he wasn't used. I don't know where he is right now. He's stepped away from Texas A&M, but the talent is there. There was a reason we were so excited for him as one of the top wide receivers in the class. I'm hoping we can get back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, 309. This team has taken Nika and Nick Singleton. I suppose we should have a look at giving them another weapon. So let's go with this guy. Again, I don't think he's on many people's radars, full stop at the moment. I love him. I love what he did in his freshman season. I'm going to take Isaac Brown, running back from Louisville.
Love it. He absolutely took everybody by surprise, didn't he?
Absolutely. And he's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year.
Great. I'm going to continue my dart throws at quarterback. I'm going to take Julian Sayin, the 5-star recruit who is at Ohio State and hedge to win the quarterback battle this year. He's getting a lot of love at the combine from the players that have left Ohio State, talking him up as a really special talent, really good arm strength. Someone I am obviously personally quite excited to see play. And at this stage of the draft, quarterback, absolutely fine doing that here, having not taken any 1st or maybe 2nd round if I was drafted for real.
Yeah. My last pick then. So for the side picking at 311, who have gone wide receiver and running back so far, I'm going to stick true to the way I play, and I'm going to take another swing at a Devy running back. This time I'm going to take the first incoming freshman running back, and I'm going to take Bo Jackson, the incoming freshman at Ohio State. Fun. I think he's going to get more game time this year than you'd expect as a freshman back at Ohio State. And yeah, just watch this name. This could be a snip and a value here.
Yeah, it could. I really like James Peoples as well, who is already at Ohio State. He's someone that I would consider at this spot. But there's 3 quarterbacks that I'm willing to take here, and I'm going to go with Dante Moore at Oregon. I think the time sitting and learning and now being handed the keys to the Oregon offense is going to really benefit him and his stock. So Dante Moore, quarterback, Oregon, rounds off the draft.
Fantastic. So listen, there you have it, team. Okay, 3 rounds, lots of names for you to get your teeth into. If you're kind of tuning in, looking at getting ahead from a dynasty perspective and looking at picking sides, looking at acquiring future draft capital as you enter a rebuild. If you are a Devy player or new to Devy and you're panicking about that first Devy draft you're going to do, hopefully we've given you some players to consider and reasons why. We'll do a proper dive into this next time and talk strategy and which teams we like as a 3, which ones we perhaps don't. What would our ideal build look like, et cetera, and kind of go more from the tactical side of things. But there's the names. There's your kind of top 36, perhaps as we see it at the moment. Yeah, what a great fun that was. Jack, that just leads me to round out by saying thank you for your time. As always, my friend, it's always great to talk ball with you. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on X very limitedly at JackCDCTT. And obviously you can find yourself at Posh Plays FF, and there's a lot more going on there than there is on my feed. So maybe focus your attention there. But also at Wildcard Devy, you can find all of our stuff there, as well as the Fantasy Wildcard crew on X and YouTube. There's content flowing out of our ears right now.
Absolutely. Right, man. It's time to go. All right, we'll see the people in a fortnight. It's been great mocking with you. All right, I'll see you soon, bro. You take care.
Catch you soon. Bye.
Bye.